out in the speeches. And if you start giving me a speech, you know, I'm crazy. I'll tell you, shut up. So that's fine. But I know my brothers and sisters, they get, well, you know, and they go on and on and on. They be going longer than I just with. So questions, and we go respond. And we're really trying to get more. I mean, the purpose of town hall meeting is so community come together and try to deal with what are the issues. Bob Starks was first, and then we'll go. Bob.
Could you just point out the role of two of our graduates from Northeastern here at the Center for Inner City Studies, Dr. Coy Pugh, and forcing the governor to have a moratorium on execution, Governor Ryan, and then later, Karen Yarborough sponsoring the bill to outlaw the death penalty in Illinois.
Right.
All coming out of the movement that you started.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Coy, I saw
Coy, could you tell us a little bit how you started that whole thing?
Well, first of all, Coy's from the West Side, so that's good.
Well, I mean, but he came to the Center for Inner City Studies.
Well, the whole death penalty movement, the atrocities were characterized by the Chicago Tribune article. And previously, we had held forums similar to this one to talk about the problems with the death penalty and the imbalance in black people being incarcerated. And due to the fact that I was a former prisoner, I don't know what the ex-felon or whatever you want to call it, I was carrying most of those issues, seat number issues and the death penalty. So we began to organize around these issues in small groups like this, and the weight of the issue was centered on getting the information out to the people so that they can make a valid decision about, you know, the injustices that were being inflicted upon our people. And that began to take a movement, and ultimately we put forth a resolution. We had enough votes to call for codification. Codification means that it would have been law, and the death penalty would have been abolished. And the Governor Ryan saw that we had a movement because we passed a resolution in the House of Representatives calling for a moratorium on the death penalty, which was going to ultimately turn into an abolition of the death penalty. And he saw that we had a movement, and he just cloaked himself in that movement and took it over. And in order to stop it from becoming a law to abolish the death penalty, he called for a moratorium, which gave the governor still control over whether or not we should have a death penalty. But it was efforts that began in basements like this that started that movement and ultimately led in saving the lives of a lot of people like this brother here, might have been executed.
That's right. In fact, you know, near when we talk about the torture, we had 14 torture victims on death row at one time, I think it was.
That's the point.
And they were talking about commuting the sentences of the torture victims. And some of them, many of them were so strong, like Aaron Patterson. They said, no, we ain't going there. We just stay. We want out of here. And so we took the position, pardon or nothing. And they pardoned. And Aaron and 4 other brothers came out. So sometimes you just gotta say, either this or this.
When you talk about this being community centered, right, or people centered, so how do we deal with the, you know, I think a lot of people are hesitant to participate because now we've been convinced to fear people. Like, okay, if you're in crime, like you said, they committed it, and people are like, well, he's better in there, don't let him out to get me. You know, it's more fear. So when you talk about the guy brother who's been locked up in isolation for 20 years, can you speak, or are you able to speak a little bit about what are they saying is the reason for that? And how do you think everybody, how do you think we navigate this, where people are afraid of people? People think most often people think, even your own family members, most often people go to jail, people think, well, that's the bad person. That's how they can disconnect. You feel like that's the bad person, or something like that. Yeah, and so they fear these people. So how do we deal with mentally kind of helping people to feel a connection so that we can feel
Can I just give 2 minutes to that?
Sure.
You know, and I stated on it briefly that, you know, that was the whole momentum behind the death penalty. They were saying, well, you know, eye for an eye kind of thing. So we were buying into the ideologies that the media was portraying, that it's right for them to be in prison because if they didn't kill somebody, they did something to be there. And so it's a word, it starts with the word of mouth. That you know, and if you, Helen Sinclair wrote a book, Knock on Any Door. If you knock on any door in the black community, you find somebody that got somebody who's been in jail, who's been a victim of this criminal injustice system. And so it starts with us. And we have to change the perception in every avenue, with every vehicle that we have available to us. You know, you through the schools, us through, you know, other individuals through the media, and individuals through their family members, you know, and we just have to change the perception of, you know, of convicts or individuals that have been, you know, put in bad situations as a result of this system.
And that's a human rights issue.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a real clear human rights.
It bears down to the human rights.
People that are in prison, first of all, we need to know statistics. Most of those in prison are black lives. But most of those are there for non-violent drug offenses.
There you go.
I mean, ain't nobody out murdering nobody, but even though they're non-violent. And even if you went there for something else, you're still human. That's right. You're still human. Right. You have a right to continue to develop. And if you're gonna come back, it's just kind of a common sense thing. We want you to come back better than you was when you went there. Right. So we want you to be educated, we want you to have some skills, you know, because you're human. Right. Yes, brother.
I wanted to take a shot at answering her question. I also have been going through conviction myself. But I think the problem
What's your
lies,
name, brother?
my name is Joseph Watkins. I think our problem lies within our race of people, because I would guarantee you that 90% of the people who, I would guarantee that 90% of the people thought that these people incarcerated, wrongly accused, were guilty. And we carry that assumption. And that comes from letting other races of people define our issues in our community. And I think that's what our problem is. I sit in jail for 18 months for a crime I didn't commit. Even though
18 months?
18 months, yes. I know people who tell me more time than that, but I'm just making an example. I'm just making an example. What I was getting at is that there were people that knew that I wasn't a corporate. They came to court. And how the system allowed this to play out all this time until the jury found me not guilty. And so what I'm saying is this: we as people, we play into corrode in this by not stepping up before danger really occurred, before things get worse. Because I reached out to a lot of people to try to prove my innocence, and a lot of people turned their head. I'm talking about our people.
I want to make just a short analysis.
Could you all just give your names?
Okay, my name is Larry Redmond, and I'm an attorney in Chicago. Part of the reason that we're seeing what we're seeing with regard to education and incarceration goes back to the civil rights movement, we want to call it that, and the movement against the war. David Rockefeller put together an organization called the Trilateral Commission. I'm sure you all heard of it. The Trilateral Commission wrote a report trying to determine why all of these rallies and all this protest was going on in the 60s and the 70s. The conclusion they came up with was people have too much education. Too much education. The other thing is that in that time, in the prisons in the United States of America, revolution was fomenting in the prisons. When you get two brothers together, we're going to start figuring out a way how to bring this thing down. And so they isolate all of them. That is why all the brothers in prison today are in solitary confinement. They don't want the revolution. They are afraid of what we can do. Understand that. That's why they're closing schools, because they don't want us to understand the power that we have. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
And then GLO base, and to go along with what these people are talking about, I've been calling VON since 1973, 72, when I got kidnapped at gunpoint and sent to prison, given 80 years for a wrongful conviction of a murder. And I called now, y'all probably heard me, those that listen to VON, I called and talked about my case all the time. And one thing was, they talking about how people feel. This lady, Perry Small, said, well, you must have been complicit because I had 80 years in prison. So that's attitude, you know, in prison among my people, you know. But I was subjected to torture, 19 years of isolation, beatings, had my testicles almost poured off, all kind of, you know, almost anything that you can imagine being done, including having, you know, I'm not casting any discouragement on anybody, having a homosexual put in my cell, you know, against my will, you know, subjected to all types of psychological, physical, and it's still going on today. So I would hope that that would be a part of the wrongful conviction aspect of it, would be a part of the petition. And I signed petitions going to the United Nations back in the 90s in prison. I wrote letters, I did interviews, all types of stuff. So, you know, that attitude is definitely present.
My name is Michael Barnes. You know, it's one thing in my heart is I just feel this pain about the United Nations. I do not trust them because everything going on is through the United Nations. But well, I had another point too. What was that point?
That's a good point.
But oh man, I just can't trust them. The Trilateral Commission thing, that was a good point as well. And we need to understand who these people are, who's on their boards, you know, genocide, Bill Gates is getting rid of, you know, all you know, people, brothers come out of jail with their pants down. It's just total psychological warfare, spiritual warfare. And I don't know what the answer is for all this, because it seems like it's all weird anyway. I know there's a YouTube site called, on YouTube there's a guy called Season of Treason. I think anybody watch that, you understand it from your birth certificate on up. It's already, no matter what we try to do. But I ain't trying to say we can't do anything. I'm just pointing something out, that observation.
Kubler first.
Absolutely.
We all start trying to get advocates.
My name is Brother Willis Anti-torture.
That's what the problem is.
As a young man, I came up in the movement. My mentor, Mr. Malcolm, was a very dear friend, founded Malcolm X Black Hand Society.
Kubler, speak up, because you're in
Can't hear
competition
you.
with them. Can't hear you.
My other mentor was Sister Christine Johnson, who left the Nation of Islam with Mr. Malcolm. She taught the University of Islam. So I was very fortunate as a young man to have mentors to help teach me my role as a young black man as I came up in the streets. We got to get our youth more involved with the movement. One of the biggest problems that we got is that they don't know their history.
Absolutely.
Because they knew their history, then they know which one they come from. A very profound statement was made by Marcus Garvey. He said, a tree without roots is like a race without a culture cannot prosper. Mr. Malcolm came back and said, if you don't know how to deal with your past and deal with your present, how are you going to make preparation for your future?
we got work to do. But most of our work is a psychological war and a spiritual war. Everything been calculated, been based on breaking our spirit. That's why it's so important that our young folks understand from which they come from. And we got to be an example for them. We just can't keep on bringing this lip service. That's why I'm out here in the streets every day. Mine is more of a spiritual piece, because I want the young brothers to understand. We got some brothers out here that really got their back and understand them, show them some love and a hug. Because every thug needs that. Because I once was that myself. You see? So I do a lot. Stan and I go way back. We come up in the movement together. Back in the days, I had took an oath, undying love for my people as a black nationalist. I never got away from that. But we fight on so many fronts. And some of us get burned out because we fight on too many fronts. And I want to commend this brother right here. See, brother like Stan, Conrad, all of us that came up and moved, we wanted forward to get these different schools named Malcolm, Martin Luther King. You know, we was with the student up, and don't mention Bob Stark. He was one of my instructors. Yes, I was. My dear sister, Linda, you know, but I'm at DuSable High School. I'm an alumni of DuSable High School. I'm on the local school council. And I'm always giving back. DuSable High School was the first black high school built for blacks. We have now achieved landmark status. It hurts me when our young folks at that school don't even understand who DuSable really was. It hurts me when they don't even understand all the great people came out of DuSable. You know, and every chance I get, I be plugging. Yeah, Red Fox came out of DuSable. Mary L. Washington come out of DuSable. Don Cornelius come out of DuSable. Okay, Johnny H. Johnson came out of DuSable. Jeffrey Travers came out of DuSable. And guess what? First Lady Michelle Obama's father graduated from DuSable in 1953. My other mentor was Dr. Margaret Burrow. You know, I remember when I was going to school, she was the first one I'd seen with a natural. And people used to laugh at her. But she put a lot of time into her students. And I'm glad I was a product of that. So I don't want to take up too much time, but the bottom line to me, we got to educate before we agitate, communicate, then participate. It's a process.
Linda Coran.
Linda, you and the brother, I forgot, maybe one or two more because we.
Okay, and I was an underground lay midwife here in Chicago delivering our babies. I said, we're gonna be the first ones to touch our babies. And 4 of my own were delivered at home as well. I even came to the nation and one time taught them some of the things they need to know in pregnancy. And have been going to the prisons over the years and started with my children's father, Phil Coran, and we would go to the prisons and the brothers would always say, oh, they're gonna let the guys out who they know are the murderers and the rapists. But those of us who are really gonna come back out and make a difference, they make sure that we stay in. Okay. I went with Ma Houston down into the prison, so I'm, very familiar with what goes on. And so I'm looking at this white guy that our government just brought back from traded 5, they did that trade, and how they're saying we gotta put him into some type of psychological counseling. And he's not ready yet to come out. Well, even when our brothers come out, so like we're dealing with, these torture cases, one of the things that definitely needs to be put in place is how to have them rehabilitated, because I even have a relative, once they came out, all they would do is sit in one spot because that's what they did in prison. And that's the least of what I saw. And so for us to have our people come out, because that's one of the concerns. I also graduated here from school, and this is one of my professors as well. Okay, Sergeant and Conrad are my professors, okay? And it's like, they need to be rehabilitated back into the community, because just like someone was saying earlier about, you know, our people are afraid, that you were saying that about our people, they gotta know that once they come out, they are going to be rehabilitated for themselves to become a contribution to the community, as these brothers have done. But it's not enough of that, so that must be in place.
Jay Paramore, I'm recently retired battalion chief, Chicago Fire Department. Sometimes you've heard me WN known as Jay from Rogers Park. I know Kubler used to work together. Brother Stan, we're going to contact you again on a certain matter we came to about a year ago. I got a question somebody discovered recently, as of 2 days ago. It's still possible right now to be in a jail cell, so-called monitoring, to have a young man be killed in a jail cell, hung, and the process is still going on today. I happen to have the mother of such a child. His name was Akoya Open, probably heard of him, a young man who was supposedly hung himself in a jail cell in 103rd. Recently getting information back, I got stuff to get to you, and it sounds highly suspicious. As you know, the main thing is, personally, this is hitting me. Since I had 35 years of having to deal with this on one level, they have it close to home. On the other level, whether human rights or civil rights, the question still comes down to that as we speak, right now, Kubler, Conrad, whatever, can be put in a jail cell, so-called monitoring, but no record is ever kept, no written record is ever kept, and a young man's going to be killed. Of course, we're going to address that to you after this is over. So one of the issues we have to address is, while we're doing the talking, this is all true, and we're definitely writing letter campaigns, whatever emails or blogs that has to be done. While we're speaking right now, I don't like the idea of me doing my job even after I've retired, trying to rescue people who are constantly dying, and they're dying right in front of us. There's no reporting going on in the cells. There's no one monitoring. The word monitoring means not recording. Understand what I'm saying? So all the conversation is, as we speak, the mother's right here. She's at her wit's end. She's from Haiti, so naturally you know that's going to be an attitude on that right there. Brother Stan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Green, but I'm known in the community as Queen Nikita. A lot of brothers and sisters know the struggle. Now, I want to say something to the comment that you said. The most powerful thing I ever witnessed in my life, being a volunteer chaplain in the state of Illinois, was the AAACC, which was an organization behind the prison wall. I was a chaplain. I was the one in the network to keep the people in the outside to come in, and I saw those brothers man the hell up. I have to put it that way. They manned up to the point. I mean, every gang organization you could think of was part of the AAACC. I saw those brothers come out of those hoods and stop stabbing each other and putting on their kufis, because I used to make them and bring them in the little dashikis. I saw those brothers. 16 years. I saw, and I grew and learned my culture by bringing people in like Gimbu, that's from the university here, and Prince Hasiel. We brought them all into the prison. They allowed them to gather, and they also turned it inside out and tore them apart and started sending them brothers all over everywhere and put them in SAG if they had a piece of paper that said AAACC. Here we then spread all this information out, how they can learn who they were. See, they found out who they really was as a black man. And then they started wanting to push that back out to the community. I saw drug trafficking stop from the inside out. One word sent out, drug trafficking in certain communities, stop.
That's right.
I seen this, y'all. It's so much power in us when we come together. And them brothers was getting ready to do some serious stuff on the outside, because they was coming together on the inside. And they shut them down, locked them up, put them on chains, and I was still going in and out of that institution. And I saw it with my own eyes. We have so much power when we can come together. But they came together under all those different groups, like what BDG, all of that. I didn't even know what all that was. I learned by bringing them together, because it didn't matter. I told them I wasn't going to join no organization, because I had to serve all of them. And they allowed that to happen. They allowed me to do all of that because I would not be one, because I'm universal. I'm all of them. So I saw this thing happen, 16 years. My husband was incarcerated 29 years. Most of you all know that. Died in 2011. Prostate cancer, bone cancer. That was diagnosed back in '87 and no one served them. Medical malpractice going on. They died like flies back there. Nobody, and I said to the family, anybody that got a person incarcerated, please take this advice. Get the affidavits you're gonna need, because you never know what can happen. If I had not got the paperwork I needed, I would not been able to get my husband's remains. You hear what I'm saying? We got to not be ignorant in this. You don't know what's going on. I don't care how healthy they may look. My husband was healthy, and he died within 3 months. Bone cancer, breast cancer, stage 4. Got an exam every year. They never told us. So I said that to let you all know that we can do some powerful things. I've seen it happen, but we only gonna be able to do it if we come together.
My name is Nancy Michelson, and for 3 years I was a paralegal investigator on a prison brutality class action suit. And where I think there is a serious issue to be looked at is that families waiting to visit inmates isolate themselves. There is absolutely no conversation in the waiting room. And I sat in waiting rooms for hours on end over that 3-year period. It seems to me that one of the things that needs to be looked at very seriously is finding the right spiritual leadership to try to help people break the fear, because that's what's happening in those waiting rooms. People are terrified of talking to each other. And how to address that, I think, might be a very important discussion to have at some point.
Good evening. My name is Joseph X. I'm the assistant to Minister Opter, who's the National Prison Minister on Mr. Louis Farrakhan. I spent 10 years in federal prison. And just to bear witness to some of the things that the brothers and sisters have said this evening, I witnessed 7 hangings in a 5-day period. Supposedly they hung themselves. I was working in the bakery with one of the brothers that day, perfectly fine. Good spirits, 23 years old. He only had 5 years, but he was young, wild, rambunctious, as most of our youth are today. And they didn't know how to deal with him. They tried to give him medication and he wouldn't take it. And so that day I talked to the brother, I said, stay strong, young brother. You know, the race don't go to the swift or the strong, but he who endures to the end. And that morning, he was hanging from his cell. We know what happened. But the point is that the point that I really wanted to make was that the people on the inside, the brothers right, they're scared of them. That's why they put TVs in federal prison. When you go inside, even if it's a maximum security where they're not allowed, they're not supposed to have TV rooms. They got TVs everywhere. Because as long as they can pacify your mind, give you something like you give a baby a pacifier, something to occupy your minuscule mind while we get on with the business of running our house, then you're fine. But perfect example, and then I'll be through. A brother had came there. In fact, he was a big student of Conrad Warrior. I don't see him in the back, but what happened was he was speaking about the fact that brothers spend too much time watching TV, BET, and all the reality shows, and that things are going on around us that we're not aware of. So he spoke with such passion and desire, like the sister was saying, he was uniting people. We woke up one day, he was going to have a thing on the yard where we were going to speak and brothers were going to talk about things we can do to go all the way to California.
Okay, we're going to have to wind down. This brother, sister.
She's had her hand up for some time.
So number 4.
This lady here?
Yeah, she's got her hand up.
She's been waiting for a while.
Okay, Robin, we got 5. Go ahead, Robert, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I'm number 5, go ahead.
I was pointing to somebody.
That was Donald Thomas. I didn't want to say anything. I was trying to keep quiet. Mainly, I want to ask you about Jamar, the not photographer, but the newsman in Philadelphia who's been on death row for a long time. But sometimes there's some things we don't see. Like with Bias, the University of Maryland, when they passed the crack cocaine law, you know, with 3 strikes out with Clinton. I was on the north side with Mark Wallace because I'm in the campaign now against the red light cameras. And I met this Caucasian guy, stocky. He was a soft boy, so he might have been, you know, a little bit. But he told me, I said, why'd you guys come on the south side to buy the drugs? See, because I was under the impression that we were being inundated with drugs in order to subsidize the prison industrial complex. He told me we call that because it's cheaper. So maybe both things are being incorporated. So sometimes there's things that's going on that we don't see right away. But that crack cocaine law with a bias there